Ministry of Industry and Trade, in the first 8 months of this year, Vietnam's trade surplus to the EU stood at $21 billion. The figure was an increase of nearly 47% over the same period last year. New generation free trade agreements, or FTAs, played a crucial part in promoting trading activities. With FTAs in place, Vietnamese products have reached over 60 markets globally. Experts believe that making effective use of FTAs can boost productivity in Vietnam, promote the development of domestic enterprises, and transform Vietnam into a high-quality global manufacturing hub.
The effective use of FTAs in recent years has helped Vietnam improve its economic and trade relations with other countries. Experts believe that these FTAs are important engines of the whole economy. In the first 8 months of the year, Vietnam's trade surplus reached over $5 billion. New generation FTAs have brought huge opportunities for economic expansion, improving labor productivity, and boosting production.
Particularly the new modern so-called free trade agreements are really not just free trade agreements. They're much broader economic cooperation agreements. The old-style free trade agreements, which focused just on tariff reductions and improving access to markets, were more narrow. But these regional economic cooperation agreements, you're getting much more flow of not just goods, but also services, investment, capital, and even people.
One of the main benefits that these FTAs like RCEP brings in is actually the reduction of tariffs. So which is, for this case, most nations will be reducing their tariffs gradually to zero in a span of about 20 years. This will definitely boost investment, especially from member nations to each other. We have already seen lots of investment in the past years, and recently more movements of switching from investing in production capacity, mostly assembly line. That's the reason why I think those kind of investment, right, are actually essential for our economy to access new tech, and hence improving the productivities overall.
The development of global value chains promotes deep integration of the labor market and international labor mobility. This requires workers not only to have excellent vocational skills, but also to have soft skills and gain the ability to work in an international environment. In that context, Vietnam needs to comply with common development rules, including labor standards and modern international labor market management standards.
Vietnam has done very well in terms of getting the increases in capital and technology through the economic cooperation agreements. But to get the real value, or to get the maximum value possible from the agreements, it's also important to build up human skills and also the physical infrastructure, because the demand for higher levels of skills, management skills, but also for more reliable infrastructure increase as you move up the value chain. Those things right are going to be increasingly important in the future.
According to many international organizations, the ability of Vietnamese workers to integrate is still wanting, and skill levels are still relatively low compared to regional and global standards. Thus, inferior skills can be considered a barrier for Vietnamese workers in the 4.0 job market and a barrier for Vietnam in achieving global integration in the future. Therefore, making effective use of FTAs will also contribute to increasing labor productivity and improving industrial efficiency, thereby increasing the country's competitiveness in the global arena.
It is safe to say